You guys, the 2020 experience is here, and I could not be more excited to share this with you. It is a culmination of the many years I have spent participating in high-level masterminds and the many years of leading masterminds. Quite frankly, it's what I desperately want myself, and I think is needed and is completely missing. I don't know anyone else doing this, and so I put it together just for you. It is for 32 ambitious women who are ready to make 2020 their year. It involves a larger mastermind of 32. It involves a smaller mastermind of 8. It involves accelerators to really dig deep and get momentum when you need it most. It involves one-on-one expert coaching and services. It involves 3 in-person meetings, 2 of which are at Miraval, which is a luxury retreat, which really, in and of itself, transforms every part of you because it allows you to tap into the wellness and the mindset and the peace that is needed in order to truly go after your dreams. This entire year is intended to help you go bigger than you've ever gone before, to really get outside of your comfort zone and to leave behind those old patterns, those old excuses that keep showing up over and over again, and they're holding you back and keeping you from having the life that you really want. So this program is not for the faint of heart. It is only for those who are 100% committed and ready to go all in, ready to leave their excuses at the door and to really show up in a way that they've never shown up before for themselves, for their families, for their careers, for a group of women that perhaps they've not experienced that before. A tribe of women who are really at that high level, supporting you, pushing you, and challenging you, and calling you on your stuff so that you can be the best version of yourself. It is going to be a year of intense hustle and intense flow, and it is going to change lives. And the ripple effect is going to go far beyond just this group of 32 women. But it is here. It is ready for you. If you're looking for a breakout year in 2020, you can apply at 2020mastermindexperience.com. Welcome to Hustle and Flow with Heather Hubbard, episode 137. Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard, and I was a litigator, partner, and practice group leader at an AmLaw 200 firm. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you embrace your ambition without selling your soul? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back. I am your host, Heather Hubbard. I am so excited about today's podcast because this came about, I think, back this summer. I was having a conversation with our guest. I'm about to introduce her. And I was like, oh, you have to come on the podcast. And she was a little hesitant, but over time, she finally agreed. And you are so lucky to have her on here because so many of you, I know, are in the position that she's gone through, where she is now, and you're going to get so much value out of this. So today I would like to welcome Zohra Tejani. And Zohra, welcome to the show. Welcome to Hustle and Flow.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for that intro. I am very excited to be with you. You know, I'm a big fan of yours, so it's just an honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you. So I want to get a little bit into LCLD because it's definitely how we met, and then maybe we'll backtrack a little bit. So some of the listeners definitely know I've had other LCLD fellows on here. For those of you listening, LCLD means the Leadership Council on Legal Diversity. And Zohra, you were a 2012 fellow. I'm a 2013 fellow. You then did amazing stuff with LCLD. So why don't we give them a plug? Do you want to share kind of what LCLD is about and how it impacted you? And then you even went on to kind of help start the alumni group.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Yes, I think that's a great idea. The Leadership Council on Legal Diversity and kind of their flagship fellows program that you just described you were both a part of, it was really a game changer for me. It's a program where attorneys from in-house or law firms are appointed by either their GC or their managing partner to participate in a year-long program. There are 3 in-person meetings. You think, okay, well, that's great. It's a diversity program. You have a lot of diverse attorneys at this. And this is about mid-year career. So just to anchor what it means for the fellows, it's about kind of mid-career. So maybe just on the cusp of making partner or just having made partner or kind of already getting to be that management level in-house in a legal department. But the program itself really is amazing on a number of levels. So it's not like a diversity program where it's an affinity program. It's really looking at developing leaders and taking diverse attorneys to the next level. And just to give you an idea of why I didn't want my fellows year to end and why I got so involved with the fellows alumni, I think about the access to luminaries that the program gave, Robert Gray, folks like Brad Smith of Microsoft, the networking, but it was more than that. If you remember, Heather, it was relationship incubation, which really helps build trust and friendships between in-house and law firm partners who later on then can hire each other, right? And so many other things that just really made it a game changer for me personally. And yes, I didn't want it to end and got very involved with the alumni program after that.
Yeah. And I'll say it was a game changer for me too. I mean, part of it was just having access to that national network with deep relationships. Yeah. It helped when I was in a firm. I was able to grow my business because of it, both from referrals from other, outside lawyers, as well as from in-house. And even in starting this business, some LCLD fellows are my clients, and then others refer people to me. And it's just such an amazing group of people who really give back and care about each other.
Absolutely. I think you said it so well. It is about recognizing that this group it's more than just ourselves, right? It is about that paying forward element as well. And I have definitely experienced that. It changed the game from my career path to getting more, leadership positions of more importance and, responsibilities. So yeah, totally agree.
So if you are a company or a law firm and you are not a member of LCLD, go check it out. It's lcld.org. Become a member. If you are at a company or a firm, find out if you are a member and go advocate to be the fellow. That's what I did. I don't know if I would have been selected otherwise. Go ask for that opportunity. All right. You were at Microsoft at the time when you were a fellow. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Why don't you share your background? Let's go all the way back, why you went to law school and then kind of your career path. I mean, we're going to get to where you are right now a little bit later, but if you'll kind of just, I guess, get us to VMware.
Sure. So gosh, it's been many years, Heather. So I went to Georgetown Law and graduated in 96. I had a bit of a roundabout path up until I landed at Microsoft in 2002. So for example, I went straight to federal government, and then got exposed to the intersection of technology and law. It's just kind of a way to get my interest peaking. And then I went in-house with a startup. And then I went to a law firm and was there doing business law and also commercial information technology law. So I kind of bounced around a little bit in the beginning. But then right around 2001, I made a concerted effort to shift my career to not just commercial information technology law, but really government procurement of. So I took courses in the FAR and really wanted to jump into that space of government and information technology. And I was really fortunate and lucky to land a role at Microsoft in the DC metro area, focused on public sector. And so I was at Microsoft for 14 years, and all along the way, focusing on some aspect of their public sector business, from U.S. federal, state and local government, and then even worldwide public sector. I love that space, and I was very fortunate and learned so much at Microsoft. Around 2016, I had the opportunity to join VMware in a leadership role to lead their public sector legal team And VMware, for those who don't know, is a global, it is one of the biggest software companies and now cloud and mobility companies on the planet. It's one of the top 5. And so what an opportunity to lead a team of about 8 legal professionals in the exact nexus of what I love, government procurement of technology. So it was really wonderful. And I was there for 2.5 years.
All right. So that gets us to where we are and kind of taking two things and putting it together. But so I'm going back to LCLD because of all the work you did to put together, the alumni group. And I've then been on the executive council. I love going to the symposiums. It is something that, it wasn't part of their initial vision, but they, allowed everyone to run with it. You recently received one of the Rick Palmore Alumni Awards. So there's 2 each year. It's a huge, huge deal. So congratulations.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, you got that. And you gave an acceptance speech that I don't want to say caused a stir because that actually sounds like it was controversial. It wasn't.
It's okay.
It got a lot of people curious and excited. So will you kind of like in a nutshell share what you talked about in your acceptance speech back this summer at the symposium?
Thank you, Heather. Well, first I'll say it still is weird for me to hear that I won the Rick Palmore Award. I mean, to have my name associated with his just kind of blows my mind. So thank you for that. And it put such a big smile on my face. And I also feel like I got so much more than what I gave, but I'm truly grateful to have won. So what I talked about, Heather, at the award ceremony, it caused a lot of reaction that surprised me in some ways. So what I talked about was, and I borrowed this word from Michelle Obama, but the word swerve. I talked about swerving in one's career. And the reference to Michelle Obama and her book, Becoming, comes from where she was talking about her boyfriend when she was back at Princeton, and it wasn't Barack Obama. But, he was on his way from graduating from Princeton and going off to medical school, but then she talked about he swerved. He decided he was going to audition to be a mascot for a professional football team. And she just couldn't get her head around why he would not take full advantage of a Princeton degree and go on to med school, but instead he swerved. So I talked about that. And my swerve that I then connected the dots to was that I was taking time off. I still get nervous talking about it, but that I shared with that group, and it was a big moment for me to say that I was no longer working. And that, more than talking about swerves and all of that, really got a lot of attention. And I can't tell you, Heather, how many people came up to me after and since to ask me about me leaving my job, about taking that time off. And
you were initially calling it a sabbatical, right?
I did. And, my strategy there was I needed a shortcut. This was a hard move for me, right? And I felt like having a term like sabbatical would help me name it, to claim it and to put it on name badges, Zohra Tejani, and then underneath sabbatical, because I had no place. I was stateless, right? I didn't have a firm. I didn't have a company. So what was I needed a term. So I used sabbatical. But, it was so interesting. And, I credit to LCLD fellows, alumni who were at the conference to challenge me to not use that word because, it was masking the fact that, sabbatical kind of connotes that you're taking time off from your company, but going back, right? It comes from academia. You're going to go back to your university or whatever. But that was not what I was doing. So they challenged me to say it out loud. That it was not a sabbatical, but I quit my job. And that I was not working. I was not tethered to any firm or company. And it was so funny, Heather. I had a hard time making that leap from saying sabbatical to saying I quit my job. Yeah. I don't know why that was so hard for me, but it really was.
Well, I think as lawyers or just as professionals in general, right? Like we've all been so focused on achieving and having these amazing careers that it's like, well, what does that mean that I'm not working? And we don't know what we want next. So, we hear all of the, like, you got to follow the rules. And it's like, well, if I put on my resume that I just quit and I had this, blank space and I can't name it, what if that means I can never get a job again? That's not true, but it's where we go in our head, I think. I don't know if you felt that way.
Oh, gosh. I mean, we could probably have an entire podcast episode on my laundry list of fears.
Right.
Yes, completely. I mean, financial fear, fear of the identity crisis, as you just kind of described, was very real for me. I had my strategies like naming it. I also did things like I created you're going to laugh. I went to the UPS store and actually got myself a mailing address for professional mail. I set up an email address for professional. I needed these crutches because I was so stateless. You know what I mean? So to fill in those gaps. But yeah, I totally get the fears. They were real at the time. But I'll also add that they now, having gone through that time frame, they were not as bad as I had worked them up to be. I really want everyone who's listening to understand that as much as I had drummed up those fears in my head, and I had, like I said, had a fairly long list, they weren't as bad. I have not suffered as much as I thought I was going to suffer. Do you know what I mean, Heather?
I literally saw a diagram on Instagram this morning, I'm not even kidding, that said, it's kind of like, it's a circle, but it's like my fears. And then it's like 6 months of like trying to face my fears. And then I finally did the thing, and turns out it wasn't really scary at all. The scary part is the building.
Right. Yes. And I love how you said facing your fears. And for me, I really try and watch my words when I talk about fears, because I don't like the phrase to overcome my fears, because I don't think I do overcome them. I like to say I move through them, because I want to acknowledge that I'm still fearful. I'm not going to say that I'm some sort of brave person, or that I don't, or a fearless person where I don't have fear. I do. I just try and move through them.
Absolutely. Having courage is different than being fearless.
Yeah.
All right. But let's talk about that. How did you get to the point where you decided, hey, I want to take time off. I want to quit. I want a sabbatical, whatever we're calling it. What made you, I guess, one, want to do that? And two, what did you do to help yourself follow through with that desire?
Yeah, it's a good question. And for me, it was a mosaic of reasons. It was such a strong group of reasons that prompted me to do this. I will share one of the major ones was, this is all very personal, but it was my eldest child coming up with her graduation and then going off to college. And with all the other reasons, I kind of waited till, the company's fiscal year and to just kind of catch my breath. And I just had such a strong sense that I needed the time off. And it was, again, partly prompted by my oldest child. I felt like I needed the time to spend with her. I felt like I needed to reevaluate my career. And I just had such a strong sense that I couldn't do it if I was also still tethered to that company. And, objectively, Heather, it does seem a little crazy at the time, at my prime of my career, great leadership role in the exact niche area that I had talked to you about earlier.
Yep.
Gosh, what was I thinking? But I, at the same time, couldn't ignore all the signals. And I just kept thinking, not all time is created equal. This time that I might have with my daughter to go prom dress shopping or to just spend time with her and to sort myself out is not going to come again. And so I think that's what really compelled me to just take that leap.
So let's talk about what you've been doing with your time off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, on that, I use that term time off, and I just want to take a moment because it relates to what I did with my time off. And so, I talk about time off, but it's not just so much about the time. So, for example, we traveled, we went to a family wedding, we spent 3 weeks in East Africa. I know you and I have a connection about safaris in Tanzania. Yes. And, it was having that traveling time with my daughter. Oh, and I cleaned out the garage. I mean, Heather, just things like, mundane. And one might think, well, why do you need, 5 months off to do those kinds of things? And that's kind of my point, is that it's not so much just about the time, but the travel, the family time, the getting my house in order, things like that, I felt like gave me space. And so I've really been thinking about and reflecting on, as so many people have been asking me about time off, I want to talk about how it's not just the time, but it's about having space to think. And more than that, I've really been thinking about, it's about perspective and it's about priorities. And I feel like, time can sometimes give you that, but not necessarily. I think about, there's this phrase that drives me crazy. I don't know if you've heard it, but it's a phrase that, we all have the same 24 hours. Or sometimes have you heard that phrase?
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's not just about that. And, I bring that up because so many people want to take time off or come to me and say, oh, Zohra, I wish I could take that time off too. And, I feel like telling them, yes, gosh, if you can take the time off, yes, please do. But I also think that it's important not to just get focused on the time. Think about what you're doing with it and what you want it for, and make sure you're giving yourself space. Do you know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. I think so. For me, when I go back to Tanzania, my trip to Tanzania was only 10 days. That is not a very long period of time, but it was the very first time in my entire career that I unplugged. I had never gone on a trip without my phone and my email and being accessible. Going to Tanzania, I mean, being there, it was very spiritual for me. So like just the place in and of itself it's got a lot of special meaning to me. But a whole lot of it was also having the space to be completely unplugged. The amount of perspective I got, and like I didn't realize how much mental space was being taken up by my career and how close I was to everything until I stepped away and had the mental space and then was like, oh, what is this? Right? Suddenly things become clear.
Yes.
And you can't get that perspective without that space. Does that make sense?
Yes. And that is exactly my point. And so, if you think about, folks who come to me and say, oh, I wish I had more time to, change my habits, or if I had time to change my mindset. You did a podcast on money mindset, right? And, I think folks say, okay, well, I want to swerve in my career, to go back to Michelle Obama's reference. Well, I need time for that. But I guess, what we're both saying is that it's not necessarily just the time, but that space, that mental space, being able to, get that perspective and the priorities. And so from that perspective, I think of space-time now is a phrase that I'm trying to use more. And, it's a reference to the physical space-time in the universe. But then I was thinking about the theoretical concept of wormholes, right? So from science fiction or from theoretical physics, a wormhole is this shortcut in the space-time continuum. Yeah. And so I was thinking, I was listening to your podcast, the one about making change. Was that what it was called? Making moves.
Yep.
Making moves. And this actually came up. And I was thinking, Heather, oh my goodness, this with my podcast coming up. And I just thought this was such a neat touch point, because I think it came up in that podcast where using coaching and masterminds to make space. And I was thinking about this. And I think of LCLD and the LCLD Symposium in the same way a little bit of, it's a short time frame, but like your Tanzania trip, you just get so much space and perspective and priorities and different ways of thinking that it's like a shortcut. So, okay, you can't take 5 months off from your professional life. Not many people can. I'm super fortunate to be able to have done that. But what I want to tell everyone is that find other ways to make your space time, find your wormhole, and I think that programs like LCLD and other coaching and masterminds, I really truly believe that you can get that. Have you found that too?
Agree 100%. Right. I mean, it allows you, it's like a wormhole leapfrog. It just allows you to, and so much of it is the perspective piece, right? It is moving past your fears, because even people that say, I'm going to challenge that most people can't take 5 months off. It will be difficult and it will be hard, but anyone actually can. Well, I don't want to say anyone, I don't want to say an absolute. Most people,
right,
especially most professionals, they actually can do that. It is the fear
right,
of all the stuff that goes with it that makes you say, I can't. But you actually
right.
can if you want to. But I agree, you don't have to, though. I think that's what you're saying. It's if you create space and you're really intentional about the space, that can still get you where you want to go. But if you stay in the same place, doing the same things, and just hope that something's going to change, that is not going to happen.
Right. Nope, that's right. I agree. That is, I think, my point. And I think, the taking 5 months off, you're right. We work things up, and I even still look at me. I'm still today saying, oh gosh, not everyone can do that, but you're right. Most can. And we build these things up in our minds. And so I'll just say again, yes, boy, if you can do it, and if you're willing to move past your fears on it, I highly recommend it.
All right. So you've spent this time.
Yep.
And what all have you, I know what you're doing next, and we'll announce that in a minute, but what all did you consider?
Yep.
What all did you explore?
Yeah, so that was a wonderful aspect to having the time off. So in addition to the kind of mundane things I described, I also did talk to a lot of folks. I thought about, okay, it's been over 20 years I've been practicing law, kind of first things first, is that still what I want to do? And I really let myself mentally explore looking beyond the law. And that was just even a mentally challenging exercise. So I let myself do that. And I really then found myself, no, I want to go back. This is still the area that I love of, government procurement of information technology. It's still my thing, and I just love it, and I still want to do it. So I kind of made that decision. So that was a big one. But then how? I did talk to companies to talk about going in-house again. I explored that. I talked to big firms to see if, maybe there's a way for me to go to a firm where I can build a practice. It's kind of a new area, kind of create something new. Thought about that. Then I talked about going to a small firm, and, I kind of looked at just what are those options. And then also looked at starting my own thing, maybe going solo or in a small firm. So I really tried to consider the spectrum of what that might look like once I decided I did want to stay practicing law in this area. So that was a big area.
So I love that you're talking about just giving yourself permission to explore. I'm curious because I know so many of us want to get everything perfect and make exactly the right decision. How did you approach that? Did you ever find yourself really trying to force the answer, or were you just more open and flexible and curious?
I appreciate that question, Heather, because it's such an honest one. And so I will admit that I initially was kind of asking questions to look for a certain answer. So I'll be candid about that. I didn't realize I was doing it until I really started letting go of certain hangups. And I'll also admit some of those hangups were financial. Yep. With a kid going off to college, I, made some assumptions about what I really needed short-term and long-term. And that did hamper my exploration, I'll admit. And it wasn't until I really sat down and kind of, broke out Excel, the Excel spreadsheet, and started really looking at the reality of my financial situation that I let myself go. I said, let me truly think about what I want to do and that will make me happy. And then success, including financial reward, will come from that. And so to answer your question, I did not let myself initially do that. It wasn't until some time, space and time, my space time, and then a solid Excel spreadsheet.
I'm so glad you shared that because I wondered, we haven't previously discussed that, but here's the thing, I just think so many of us, we try to give ourselves space, right? But the achiever, the lawyer, the professional in us, we still tend to put ourselves in boxes and still tend to force a certain outcome and still really put all of these limits, even when we say we're not, and we don't always even know we're doing it. So thank you for sharing that and for sharing how you then kind of got through that to, get to the place of I'm just going to be open. Yeah. So share with everyone what's next, what you have decided you're going to do.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to announce this on the podcast. So I am pleased to announce that I have co-founded a boutique firm with another diverse woman attorney to form Zohra Tejani PLLC. And we're kind of building it and flying it at the same time. So I can just say right now that we're taking a modern approach to government contracts law, in particular with my kind of GovTech angle. In longer term, I'm hoping to also add in becoming a neutral, becoming a mediator and an arbitrator in that space of, government, technology. So we'll see where that goes.
I am just so excited for you. I think that is going to be an amazing, amazing journey. I know we're getting close to our time, but I'd actually like to hear a little bit about, because it sounds to me like, right, like not only were you doing some swerving, you were doing a lot of the facing your fears and moving through your fears, because it's one thing to say, I'm going to quit my job to even figure out what I want. It's another then to say, you know what, I'm actually going to start my own business. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I did that, I had a lot of fear with it. Do you think that the time space thing actually helped you do that? I mean, I'm curious, do you think that you would have been brave may not be the right word, but would you have even done that, straight out of VMware? Or did you need that space to even have the perspective to know you could do it?
Oh, it's such an on-point question, Heather. I absolutely needed that space time to not only take the time off, which was one set of fears, right? That one list of fears to move through. But then you're absolutely right. Starting a business is a whole nother set, because now you're talking longer term and just, having a skill gap. And on that, I very much appreciated your podcast on Mind the Gap, because it really helped me recognize that I may have some great skills in my GovTech space, but there are a whole nother set of skills that I need to learn. But yes, having that space time really helped me feel like I could move through my fears. And just to circle back to LCLD, I will say, having that network and having the cheerleading that kind of goes with that network and the support has been huge. I really think that but for some space time and having the LCLD network, I don't know that I would have had the courage to go forward with this firm.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to actually do a plug. So either go advocate for yourself to get into LCLD. I think that each new fellowship, does it start in March? Am I making that up? Is March when each one?
I think this selection process is January, but I think you're right. I think the first actual session is in March.
Okay. So this is coming out with time. So if you're in a company or a firm that's a member, advocate to get that spot that starts in March. If your firm or company is not a member, get them to become a member and then get that spot. Otherwise, get yourself in some kind of group coaching or a mastermind. If you did not hear the episode on making moves, which was episode 135, I believe, Amy Gardner and Keith Spiral, they are doing some masterminds, including one on changing careers, exploring careers. So if you can't or don't want to take the time off, that will still give you the space. It's a 6-month program to explore it. And if you're not looking to do a swerve, right? You know what you want and you want to go after it, the wormhole is still the same. The space-time concept is still the same. So you can apply for the 2020 mastermind with me, or if that's not a right fit, go find another one. But give yourself permission to leapfrog and to go do the thing already, as opposed to, making slow progress or staying stuck. Zohra, I am so glad that you agreed to come on, because you are going to help so many people with this podcast. I am so excited for you and what's next. So I'm just honored that you were willing to come on and to make your big announcement on the podcast.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you so much for your encouragement and support. And good luck to you with your masterminds and all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, we will be back next week. Now is the time to get your application in for the 2020 Mastermind Experience. If you are an ambitious woman ready to make 2020 the year where everything changes, the year where you put yourself first, where you tackle your excuses and your fears so that you can begin to create the life and career that you truly want, you want to check out this program. It was created for you. Our rooming list is due to Miraval on November 4th. That means you need to get your application in now so that you can be considered for a seat on this rocket ship. You can learn more and apply at 2020mastermindexperience.com.